Welcome to Lawyers Who Learn, where we explore how attorneys' engagement and lifelong learning fuels their growth. Join us to uncover these journeys and gain insights for your legal career.
All right, Kerbis, I'll start with that. You said you preferred it by your last name, or Mathew. I appreciate you being on today to talk about learning through subscription models. So thanks for taking the time.
All right. Well, I'm happy to be here, and and folks know if they've heard me before, I could talk subscription models all day.
and so when we're gonna I'm personally obsessed with the opportunity about how attorneys can learn a new way to practice law, and I'm also a very big fan of yours. You've taught several courses with Lawline, and one that's making me a little bit self-conscious because one of them is podcasting for lawyers. I can tell you, Descript is my tool of choice, and wow. So if you do want a podcast, Descript is the thing to use.
Well, David, why you just gave away my whole Lawline course? But that is if you are not going to watch the course, and everybody should, Descript is all you need to know.
And I've actually been telling internally, the way we do our video marketing post course, I'm like, guys, you're stuck in the horse and buggy era with trying to actually edit without it. And so you look at the transcript and you edit, and that's how it is. And maybe that's a good analogy to everything that has to be relearned right now for lawyers. And Jack Newton recently talked about at the Clio conference how AI is the end to the billable hour, and that's been talked about for a long time. And I know you talk about that, but I'm less concerned about whether it is the end or not. I'm more interested in the purpose of this podcast is the attorney who's out there, and I think a solo practitioner or small firm is the right mix because that's who you are, who is actually sick of billing, the billable hour, or they're just about to start and they're not really even sure what they need to learn to go about that process. And I think that's just a fair thing. And maybe they don't have time to watch a full podcast. And I've been full CLE episode, which you've done several for us. But let's just talk it out for a minute. Take us through sort of the aha moment for you, from traditional law to, value-based pricing.
Well, I'll tell you what, I've always been someone who wants to learn new things, right? Going back to the theme of just this whole podcast, right? Lawyers Who Learn. And I'm always trying to learn as much as I can about as many topics as I can. And I even had a partner that I once worked for who said, I know you listen to a lot of podcasts because I'm also a big consumer of podcasts. He's like, but I actually think that's good, even if they're not law related, because in his perspective, as a practicing attorney, the more we learn about a lot of things, the better lawyer we are because we're able to connect possibly disparate ideas or different things together to help sell the case for our client if we happen to be litigators. And I was a litigator at the time. I'm not anymore. But I was always learning about business because it really interested me, even though I went into law. And so I was learning about the subscription model and the subscription economy and SaaS businesses. And I wasn't thinking that I would apply them to a law firm, but I was learning about them as I was listening to podcasts like This Week in Startups and other sort of tech and entrepreneur style podcasts. Well, I was maybe a year or two into billing when I got off the phone with my dad once, and I was thinking, okay, that's 0.3 or whatever it was. I'm thinking, gosh, what am I doing? I'm thinking about my time talking to my father as billable time. This is absurd. This makes absolutely no sense. And then I would have those clients who, some of them are clients of mine right now, now that I'm a firm owner, where they'd have a quick question. I'd answer their question over the phone. Am I going to open a new matter to bill them 0.1? Even though I solved their problem in 2 minutes over the phone. So I was giving away a lot of freebies. My clients who were my book of business that I was building hated that I had to bill them by the hour. I hated having to bill them by the hour. And so one day I floated the idea of, hey, what if I could just bill you the same amount every month and I could just help you with your legal things. And they thought that was a great idea. And so I tried to get permission of my firm. I didn't get it. Then the pandemic happened. Then I did get permission. But then when I was actually trying to build out the subscription practice within a billable hour practice, I found it was too difficult to do. So I had to leave to start my own practice. And so while I think you can't do it if you get buy-in from every partner and every attorney at an existing firm, it's easier to burn the boats and just go start your own new practice.
And so do you think if you had to think who this is in the next few years, the best model for business model, is it solo practitioners?
Oh, without question. And part of the reason being is the entrenched mindset of traditional firms, right? And look, I've had, because I have a podcast, Law Subscribed, where I interview lawyers who have ditched the billable hour, and I'm really highlighting the work of other lawyers. There are lawyers who've been practicing law for literally decades that ditched the billable hour. So it doesn't matter how long you've been practicing or how long you've been licensed, but every single one of them is either the only or one of 2 or 3 partners at a very small law firm, and they started a new firm.
You are your sweet spot is real estate in Illinois, correct?
Well, I've been doing that the longest, right? It's like at
But
this
also
point,
contract.
yeah, fractional general counsel.
Okay.
So, Google, Microsoft, they have full-time in-house attorneys and massive legal teams, right, that are larger than a lot of law firms. I'm fractional in-house attorney for small businesses that are not big, and I define a small business as they're not big enough to have a full-time in-house attorney. I just take care of all their legal things on an ongoing basis. And in the same way that an in-house attorney is not a specialist, unless you're Google and you have like a whole IP law department, right? You outsource to outside counsel for specialized legal needs. Well, I still act as that source of, now I could go find a trademark attorney to help this client get a trademark, because now they're at the point that they need a trademark and their GC is telling them you need a trademark, or they're being sued and I'm not going to court for them. I will help source and manage litigation counsel for that client as well. So, and I certainly do commercial real estate matters as it relates to a small business owner, mom and pop shop, commercial leases, those kind of things too. And I have a retail practice as well, but it's a much smaller part of my practice these days than the fractional GC work that I do.
And like I said in pre-interview, or maybe during the beginning, like during this podcast, I'm not really sure where to go because there's so many areas to talk to you about. And I'm just going to tell you some things that I think about as you're saying this.
Yeah.
I think about what you've said on Lawline, I think on podcasts before, like your tech stack is like 43 tools and there's a lot to learn there. And so I think maybe that could be a focus. And then I think about what was your transition like, the first 12 months and how you set this up. And like, again, that could be a focus. And then I also think about like what everyone's thinking about. How much money can you really make doing this compared to where you were before? Obviously, I totally get it for a solo practitioner, but because it's scalable, right? You could go 10x if you figure this out, but there probably is a limit, even as a solo practitioner, to how much money you can make. And I'm just curious about that too. So if I'm going to give you like a la carte menu, which area would you want? But the fourth, I'm going to say one more. You're a teacher. You are a teacher. You don't need to do this. You don't need to educate the rest of the legal market on how you've built this model. So I'm going to start there actually. How has teaching benefited you either as a learner, as a communicator, or as a law firm owner? And why do you do it?
So I'm a former young lawyer liaison to the American Bar Association section of legal education and admissions to the bar. And so I've actually been pretty involved in legal education in particular, but one of the old directors for that section, Barry Currier, he's on record saying he believes all lawyers are teachers. We all have a teacher in us if we went to law school and got licensed. Because if you think about the nature of the work that most of us do, is we're educating. We're educating a jury, we're educating our client, we're educating a judge on the law, the facts applied to the law. So we're all sort of teachers, and most law professors are not trained teachers. They learn on the job, but they're licensed attorneys. So I will just say, according to Barry Currier, I'm not special. Right? I'm just another lawyer. I come from a family of teachers. So a lot of my aunts were teachers, many of them special ed teachers. And I don't have any particular teaching or training or anything like that. But I've always been a public speaker, and so there's a little bit that helps, with the whole teaching aspect. And I've always really cared about context and conveying all the context, and so that sort of lends itself to teaching a little bit. And then for decades I've been the benefactor of mentorship, and I've given back, and I've been a mentor. And if you think about like what mentorship is it's in a way just one-on-one teaching. And so having received a lot of mentorship and now given a lot of mentorship, what I perceive teaching as, at least the way that I do it, whether it's like doing a CLE on Lawline or being a guest on a podcast, is instead of one-to-one mentorship, it's one-to-many. And so instead of like having like a traditional pedagogical like technique, I just think like I'm mentoring one-to-many via being on this podcast or having a CLE or having a platform versus I'm teaching a course or guest lecturing, which I have guest lectured, but I treat my guest lecturing a lot similar to coming on a podcast.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, by the way, I have that bug too. Obviously, Lawline is a platform to teach and share, as well as this podcast, as well as a book. I've written books, a book of mindset. I public speak, and people ask me like why I do it. I'm like, I just can't stop. It's inside of me. Like, I don't know how to not share it. If I know something that's bring value, I don't know how not to share it and organize it. And it sounds like that's what you said. And so I'm trying to get at the attorney who's listening to this. Like, what did you learn? Let's try, I don't know, maybe it's the transition year. What did you learn? What mistakes were made when you tried to go the subscription model early on?
So there are people who conceptualize of the idea, they think it's genius. Potential clients, other lawyers, they're like, gosh, I wish I could get recurring revenue. That sounds great. But the hardest hill to climb still, even though I'm 3 years into this, and there are lawyers who have been leveraging the subscription model for 15 plus years, is, do I really need to subscribe to a lawyer? And so one of the ways that I engage in business development, and even though I'm a virtual law firm, I still find that most of my clients are local. So I'm very involved with local nonprofits, with my local chamber of commerce, and I go to a lot of events, and I have opportunities to pitch myself, to do an elevator pitch, to talk to folks. They say, oh, you're a lawyer, you're a subscription attorney. What do you do? Like, what kind of lawyer are you? So I have a lot of opportunities to explain, like, why would it make sense to even subscribe to a lawyer? And a line I use a lot I have to like educate the public, right? Talk about teaching, right? I have to educate the public on why should you subscribe to an attorney? And I didn't come up with this, but I use it all the time. And I explain that, well, law is the operating system of society. We just don't do a good job teaching members of our society about the law and how to leverage it and how to interface with it, how to think with it. Sometimes I call clients who know a lot about legal stuff because they've worked with me for years, because they've been subscribed. I say, oh, you have the curse of knowledge now, right? Like you can see the matrix. I have some clients who, well, they could definitely contact me because they're subscribed. They've learned so much from working with me over the years that they're like, oh, you'll be so happy. I was presented with these terms at my doctor's office, and I refused to sign them. And I still demanded to see my doctor, which is a technique I helped them with in their business. And they were so happy about that, right? Because they had sort of learned that. But people don't learn what their legal options are until they've interacted with an attorney a lot. And everything is, and if I'm in a certain context, like if I'm in person, I'm like, this is a legal event, right? This podcast is a legal event. We're creating content. There's IP ramifications for this. You cannot be interfacing or interacting in society and it not be a legal something. Wouldn't it be nice to be able to tap into a legal mind for only $20 a month to figure out, like, what's the legal thing happening right here and what are the questions I'm not even asking? Because issue spotting ends up being an incredibly valuable thing that we lawyers can offer lay people. And, you know, I don't have any good term for non-lawyer. Like the best non-term I have is layperson, right? Like we could issue spot for them. I mean, we spent a lot
That's
of.
interesting.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, well, because I love that, and like, because I know, and again, I know your prices range from $20 to 2,000 or even more a month, depending
Right.
on the model. And the $20, just so make sure we're on the same page. It's not on. It's unlimited 15-minute calls. Is that what it is? No, or it's
It
three
is. I
calls.
mean, they could schedule as many calls as they want, but the key word there is schedule, and it's limited only to the extent that they only have me at the end of my day to schedule those 15-minute calls.
Yeah.
If you like, but I don't cap them on how many they could schedule, how many a day, how many a week.
Yeah.
So like it's unlimited scheduled calls, but it's during a limited time frame at the $20 a month, and that's like your basic membership level. So once you pay that amount, you could schedule those calls, you could get real legal advice, and then it's $50 a page a la carte for like random contracts or other things to read and draft, and then for all my other flat fee work, it's less than $50 a page, and the flat fee is like on my website. So if I'm doing a prenup, or if I'm doing a simple estate plan, or if I'm doing a residential real estate closing, like all those have fixed fees on my website that they only get access to at $20 a month. And then I have certain fees that they only get access to if they're paying me $100 a month or more. And those include subscription add-ons. So I don't just leverage like subscription plus flat fee in that way. I also do subscription add-ons. So like if I'm helping a client with an asset purchase agreement, and I usually like go like way down market with this, right? Like we're talking like sub $500,000 in like the ultimate purchase price. They sign up at $100 a month, and then for a subscription add-on of $800 a month, so they're really paying $900 a month, and we could usually close.
You're losing me. You're losing
in 3 to 6 months. Okay.
It's too complicated. But going back to what you said, law is the operating system of society. I love that, what I hear you saying is you want to be their advisor, right? Consultant. You know, not just, is that essentially what you're saying? Like you're on call versus calling them at the last moment. Like reach out to you before there's an issue when they have questions, and you can advise them or at least point them in the right direction if that's not where you're an expert. Correct?
100% correct. And what's great about the subscription model is when you're charged at the start of the month, at the start of the term. They want to maximize their subscription benefits, right? The incentive is, I've already paid the $20 that month. I will schedule a call with Mathew, and I will have a conversation with him. And that helps me help them avoid big, expensive legal problems in the future, which
Sure.
That is a forever promise that I can make as their attorney. Like I can't promise them that we will actually prevent those legal problems from happening, but as long as you contact me before there's a problem or before it's big, I can help you avoid it from getting worse or avoid it altogether in the first place.
Got it. And okay, so when I asked sort of what were some of the early mistakes you made, and you said people asking, or what you learned early on, you said why do they need a subscription? So like that's a really important question, because tell me more about that, like some challenges that you had to learn from there.
Right. So I mentioned the challenge, then how I went about solving it as far as the education gap. Another problem I had was, even though all my pricing and everything was on my website, my engagement agreement, everything was super transparent, folks still wanted to be able to reach out to talk to me. I still don't let them just call me because in order for them to leverage the way I've set up my services, they have to be able to schedule a call. But what I did is I added a schedule call button. That's the first top button right in the center of my website. And once I added that, and I also added a section for them to send me a message with questions, like I both of those things did not exist when I first launched. And I get inquiries in the message thing, some of them relevant. I will say I'm thinking about getting rid of it because like 90% of people that fill out that form are trying to sell me something, which is another reason why I don't have my phone number listed on my website, because it's just going to be people calling trying to sell me something. But they could only and I make them schedule a Zoom call because it also reduces fraud and salespeople, right? So they have to skip potential clients. You get 15 minutes with the lawyer at the firm by clicking on that button. And then I also have a floating button. So wherever you are on my website, it's just a long scrollable one-page website. there's always a floating button that says intro call that you could schedule a call with me. So I just make it stupid simple to schedule 15 minutes with the lawyer. And don't get me wrong, I'm sure I've missed some clients that like they wanted to talk to me, but they weren't available until later in the week and they canceled. Like I've had those. But I'm not the emergency lawyer. So if you needed to talk to a lawyer right then and there, it did me a favor by you going and working with some other lawyer for an emergency, because I'm not that lawyer.
Have you learned yet what is your ideal number of clients?
So I have three markets that I'm serving, which is also not ideal for a new business owner. What I typically advise clients is what I typically advise attorneys who want to do what I do is it's easier to pick a market and then expand into other markets. So like my three buckets are like retail law, everyday people, latent legal market folks who have long been served by billable hour attorneys, right? Everyday Joe, Schmo, Jane Schmo, they Schmo, and being their general counsel, helping them buy and sell a house, helping them with a prenup before they get married, helping them put together a simple estate plan, help them with their employment agreement with their company, whatever sort of other contracts. Like I help with random contracts like event agreements, dog groomer agreements, comedy club agreements, like random one-off things, right? Like see small contracts, because at $50 a page, it's like it's a no-brainer. So I have those clients. And that's a different number, right? I could have a much higher quantity of those clients than I can of the next ones. The second bucket I serve are freelancers, solopreneurs, folks like me, who they are in their zone of genius, right? Whether they're a copywriter, maybe they're a graphic designer, maybe they make websites, maybe they're a consultant. And I've helped a lot of consultants like spin up a business and get started. And after working with me, they were thinking they were going to bill by the hour. All of a sudden, they want to do value-based pricing, project pricing, subscription pricing for their consulting company that they're starting. I could have fewer of those clients than the individual clients, though still I think a large number, right? So let's say like I might even be able to handle 500 to 1,000 individual clients, because realistically, they don't need something every single day. And if they do, that's great for me because I'm making $50 a page or I'm having flat fee stuff whenever I actually need to do work for them, right? And then I have small business clients, right? These are clients that they're wearing all the hats in their business, including their legal hat. So they're the chief operating officer, they're the CEO, they're the CFO, they're the chief legal officer. Well, now they could take off that chief legal officer hat. They could pay me less than what it would cost to pay an employee minimum wage full-time. Now, I'm not working full-time in that business, right? I'm working like at most a day a week or a half day a week in that business. But they're paying me thousands of dollars a month to take care of all their legal things, and they have a lot of ongoing legal things. Well, I could have a lot fewer of those clients, right? Like for the freelancers, I might max out at like 1 or 200, and for those small business clients, I mean, I might max out at like 20 for those small business clients, And realistically, any one of them could be its totally own business model.
Totally. And so if, like you said, just so I think those are good numbers, you said 20 small business, 200 solopreneurs, and I don't know, I think you said 1,000, individuals. What is the, because this is what people care about, right? What is like, what kind of, if a firm is hitting those numbers at sort of your price point, what are they bringing in gross a year? Like what should an attorney be hoping for if they're not going to hire somebody else? And I'm curious if that's your goal eventually. But if they're like, I want to be a solopreneur, is it a couple 100,000 a year what we're talking about, or is it scale much bigger than that in your mind?
Well, I'll tell you, it's easier to scale by targeting the last group.
Of course.
And even then, like there's like my clients there, with the exception of 2 of my business clients, are still latent legal market, and that like they've avoided hiring lawyers before because of billable hours. And even my institutional clients are so happy because they're not worried about billable hours anymore. So they're kind of my happiest clients. Well, I think that if you have like but it is more difficult, right? So like when you're helping with retail law, their needs are a lot fewer and a lot less complicated if you could avoid the problems in the first place, right? I do get clients who go from the first bucket to the last bucket because while I help them in their life, it turns out they're also the owner of a business, or an
I'm
equal
thinking
owner
I'm
of a
going to pay you
business.
$20 a month. I'll see what I can get out of that.
Well, I'm only also licensed in Illinois, so I can
Oh,
only
fair
help
enough.
clients in Illinois. So
Fair
that's the
enough.
other thing. So going back to why do I teach? Well, I also teach because, David, what if you did want to tap into my legal mind? Well, you can't tap into mine because I'm not licensed in wherever you're located. But if I could teach other lawyers how to do it and inspire other lawyers, well, now when you come to me, I can now refer you to a lawyer in your jurisdiction who has an affordable, predictable subscription.
Do you see, no, I appreciate that. And it's interesting because obviously while you're only licensed in Illinois, certainly, like you said, a lot of what you're talking about is, that copyright law or anything like that is beyond state specific
I
information.
don't have a federal practice, but a lot
Uh,
of the subscription business models for legal services started in the intellectual property space for exactly that
correct,
reason.
correct. Trademark
Yeah,
protection and things like that.
right.
Um, so, hmm. So just going back to the scalability of it, um, is
Oh, the
your
number.
vision?
You
Well,
want me to give you
I'm just not for you, but like yeah, what you've done, you've learned a lot. So where do you see if somebody is looking to start this off, give them sort of a vision of like, okay, what we're based on that numbers, where they, if they hit all the numbers in the mark, what is their best possible scenario if they don't hire anyone else?
Yeah, so if and I'm trying to stay a true solo, although I did get the domain to legalextern.com, and I am looking to bring in an extern. Because when you want to hire an extern, don't you get a domain when you want to hire? Isn't that what you do? So legalextern.com if you're a law student. Law students only. I've been getting lawyers who are applying. It's only for law students because you're getting credit towards graduation. So I am trying to bring in like an extern. And one of the reasons I want an extern instead of a full-time employee is not just because as a small shop with constrained resources, it's more reasonable. But a lot of what I'm going to have to do is educational anyway, that it qualifies for externship credits. And every semester, including over the summer, I'll get fresh eyes on my firm and on things, right? And by teaching, going back to even your earlier question, when you teach, when you mentor, you learn things. Like you also learn when you teach, when you mentor. And so by having an extern and teaching them about stuff, I know I'm also going to learn things and they're going to teach me things too. But so that part aside though, if you want to stay a true solo, and I do, I think you max out at $500,000 in annual recurring revenue. But that you will need to outsource some things. Like, and I'm not there yet, right? Because I'm 3 years into this journey. I'm a little under 3 years in. March of 25 will be 3 years for me. Or March of 25 will be 3 years. So I'm not there yet, but I will tell you it doesn't take too long to get to six figures in revenue. And so depending on what you're making at another firm, and if you keep your costs really low, and I do, like my first costs, my operating expenses, my first year were $5,000. Like it is so cheap to have a virtual law firm these days, right? Like everything over that is gravy minus taxes, right? And so, it doesn't take a lot to have a profitable business if you have everything else figured out and you're good at the law and you could sell your legal services, right? Like everything kind of has to be aligned, but with resources like Lawline, there are more resources than there have ever been before. And Carolyn Elephant was a big resource for me, right? Like reading her stuff, she has like a package for like a couple $100. You could download all these resources that you need as a new solo to have. And while I haven't used like half of them, I used half of them. So there's things out there like that. Like I try to have a lot of stuff out there, like my engagement agreements on my website, mostly just for clients, but it's been a good resource for other lawyers who want to do what I do too.
Well, okay. So by the way, you are so good. Like you know how to give an answer full and complete. Like you've been doing that. Like it's impressive. I just want to share that. So there's three things that I wrote down as you were talking, that might be worth covering. One, I want to go back to the tech stack. Obviously, we can't cover all 41 or 43 tools that you have, but it's an important component to this. Number two is like you're only as good as you are good as an attorney. So I'm curious how much time and energy you spend keeping up to date on that, or do you feel like no, you're there? And then the third thing, is this, like, I don't know, have you ever thought about actually there is a need in the market for attorneys to transition their practice, and is there a business opportunity that you've ever considered sort of building a platform to do that. I know there's companies that are really good that are doing that. So let's start with the last one first, and then we'll go to the other two.
Well, after I gave my first CLE presentation on this topic a couple of years ago, lawyers came up to the stage because we had like just started to be in person again. For folks who remember that we did have a pandemic just a few years ago. And they came up to the stage and they were like, I will pay you to teach me how to do this. And I was like, oh, that is not something I thought about. So I do have a product now that's called subscriptionseminar.com. And right now it's just a wait list because excuse me, sorry about that.
No worries.
So right now it's just signing up to be on a wait list, and the wait list is like over 30 lawyers long. And I'm trying to get through it as fast as I can, but I am a practicing attorney first, and I think one of the greatest value, the greatest value I could provide to my subscription seminar attorney customers is that I am doing it every day. And teaching them how to do it too is kind of a full-time job. And so we have plenty of examples of lawyers who went from practicing law to becoming full-time lawyer coach. I do not want to do that. So I do have a product out there. Now, what I have been thinking about is, there are these platforms like Maven, and I've dabbled with teaching podcasting on Maven before, and it's okay. But they do cohort-based learning. And so I'm thinking about like re-evaluating my current subscription seminar offering that's a one-on-one product, and think maybe can I do it one-to-many and do like a cohort-based learning instead? And that frankly might even be more valuable when people are able to bounce ideas off of each other. And so that could be a way that I could work through my backlog at subscriptionseminar.com. But then I have to find the time to like redesign that product into a cohort-based learning course where right now it's a one-on-one coaching thing. Excuse me.
Yeah, no, and I think about it too, because like, I've watched your courses. I've talked to many different people who were focused on this, and I recently posted about that. And I think about how could Lawline add more value in this space beyond CLE courses, and build something that really supports solopreneurs, solo attorneys to do this in small firms. And I don't know, it's something that gets me excited and gets me focused beyond just courses. Because I think to your point, courses take you only so far, but people will get nervous and struggle. And so I don't know, it's something that I want to keep exploring with you post this podcast as well. How about if is there 5 things that come to mind, and I made up the number 5, but like somebody who's thinking about this, what are things they need to learn? Like the first 5 things they need to learn if they're gonna do this, that would just help sort of thinking that.
Well, you're going to have to learn a lot because they don't teach you in law school how to start a business. And Lawline has and this goes to like even your earlier question to me, like how does a lawyer who wants to do what I do, what sort of money could they look to make, right? And like, well, if you only target small businesses or freelancers or individuals and you focus your marketing efforts on all one of those, you're going to get to that 6 figures a lot sooner because you have a niche and you have a focus. Some of the most successful versions of subscription law firms are so focused on a particular niche. We just help small doctor offices. We just help agricultural companies along the food supply chain. We just help bench warmers that are athletes, right? Like that's it. Like those are the types of not only like niche type of customer avatar, but like practice area too. And I'm so broad, and my niche is I'm the most affordable attorney and I'm fractional GC, right? So it's like not a great example of a niche. Lawline's niche is excellent, right? And look, like I've been faculty for a lot of different CLE companies, and they've all been good experiences. Some of them excellent, but like none have been better than my experience being faculty with Lawline, which is why I've taught so many courses with Lawline, right? Like it's like really leagues above the other ones, even though I've had very positive experiences with the other ones. So I don't know if you necessarily want to go down the road of here's how you handle categorizing your expenses, as a small business owner. Like, do you need to learn how to do that via Lawline? Well, maybe it's part of this like business package of here's all the business things that have nothing to do with law, but it's about running a small business. You have to have marketing you have to think about marketing. You have to think about biz dev. You have to think about all these tech tools. Like I use Canva a lot. I love Canva and I love Descript from a marketing perspective, in addition to just like ways that I might be able to leverage it for like more traditional practice. Like I use Descript to record explaining a contract, and then I could share the link with the client, right? So like I am using it for client related work. So I try to always, and I think I even talk about that on the Podcasting for Lawyers CLE that I do for you guys. So like learning to use tools like Canva or image or AI image generators. Like I'm a fan of Gemini when it comes to AI image generation. So anyway, like I don't know if it's worth necessarily focusing on that stuff, but I will tell you there is a hunger for it, because one of my most listened to episodes on my podcast is a conversation I had with another small practice solo attorney named Lauren Lester, and it was just, it was about how to, should I start a solo practice, and kind of how do I even do that? And it was just like a 45-minute LinkedIn audio conversation, and it's 2 years old, and it's still getting crazy downloads, right? So there is a huge hunger for that kind of information.
Well, first off, I appreciate the feedback on being a faculty for Lawline. And I heard you say that on the podcast, and it's really great to hear that. I'm curious if you can put that in words, what that experience was. Was it the turnkey nature, the platform, the actual experience of when the course went live? And then my follow-up to that is, I would love any recommendations. I asked this to every guest, of courses that you think are needed that you have not seen that we should focus on.
So one of the things that being Lawline faculty that's so nice about it is I can sign into my account as a user, and when I update that, my faculty profile is also updated. On my faculty profile on the website has all the courses that I've taught that you could just cycle between. The courses are kept up to date with new, like the most recent feedback and quotes from users, and you like just largely advertise this is the rating, and that is why I promote it, like also in my bio, like my professional bio. It's in it because I could say, hey, look at the like combined thousands of people that have watched, or thousands of views, some of them maybe watched multiple, of my Lawline courses, and look at how high of a rating it is. So you make it incredibly easy to share. And I also get reports, right? So like I get reports of like people that watched it in the last quarter, and law firms and lawyers who have watched it, if I want that information. And so like if I want that information, I could get it. It's not really relevant to me, but I'm curious to know, like, where are people watching this from? Like, are there firms in like what jurisdictions? Like, because maybe I can, if I care to expand my podcast, I could like advertise if I wanted to, like in those particular areas where I know a lot of firms from this particular jurisdiction are watching my courses on Lawline, right? So like, depending on what my goals are, my podcast doesn't really generate much revenue, so I'm not going to spend that kind of thing. But the experience I have with the staff, with the folks who work at Lawline, has always been super positive as well. And you made it really easy. And now I've done a lot of courses before, but like when I have a new, like I also am co-chair of the Solo Small Firm Committee for the Chicago Bar Association. And we put on monthly content. We have a monthly content calendar. And sometimes it will be somebody's first presentation. And it's a small group, like 20 to 30 live attendees, 250 total committee members that might watch the presentation. And we always submit them for CLE to make sure we get CLE for it. And I literally give them Lawline's materials that's branded with Lawline stuff all on it. Like, hey, you've never presented a CLE before. Here's a bunch of materials that I found were really helpful and useful to me that might be super useful to you, right? And so like I'm literally sharing your materials with other future or new CLE presenters.
Well, and I appreciate that really broad description. And some of those things that you talk about were my pet projects, include like the updating your descriptions and having your courses on there. Like the other thing that I don't know if you actually get, because you're do that, but we made a really easy contact me button too on your profile. Some attorneys get a lot more reach outs than others, but we were just trying to make it easy. So I appreciate that. And, we've always focused on like, we're a subscription-based business as well. So we want to make it so it's easy to stay with us. I always wonder like how I can benefit you more, building a community with other faculty or other individuals, attorneys who are interested in the subscription model. And I don't know if you've ever felt that pain point, that, we have tens of thousands of attorneys every year, every month watching courses, and we have thousands of faculty who are put their time to inspire and empower others. So it's something that I think about. I don't know if that is a pain point you've had.
I'm part of so many like lawyer communities, and there are paid ones and free ones, right? And then there are some paid ones that they let me join anyway because they want me to be part of their community that I don't have to pay. I won't say which ones those are. And so it's interesting, right? Like one of them I just posted in and somebody was asking about fractional GC something. And I actually posted the Lawline course that you made free through the end of the year, in addition to my podcast. And that day, I got 1,000 more podcast downloads just that day that I posted that thing, right? So, like, I know they must have thousands of lawyers who looked at that, right? Because, only a small percentage of those who actually look are going to click on the link and, like, download an episode, right?
That's fantastic.
So, like, that, like, I think the power of like, these legal communities can be incredibly powerful, right? And like for me, like what that would look like is just more podcast listeners, because at the end of the day, like it's one thing to hear me talk about how I do it. And everyone can go to MathewKerbis.com where they'll see this interview amongst many others that I've done. If you want to hear me talk about it. But what's great about the podcast is I'm able to highlight the work of others. And I think that is far more convincing that the model works than just hearing from one lawyer that's done it. Well, how about you hear from dozens and dozens and dozens of lawyers who have done it, right? I haven't quite crossed 100 lawyers doing it, but I should get there next year. Over 100 lawyers who are leveraging the subscription model in some way, because I'm also hearing from a lot of big law lawyers this year. Like my biggest 2024 takeaway is big law lawyers hate big law and want to have a sustainable business that still earns them decent revenue, and they want to figure out how the heck can they start a solo practice and leave big law, and have a sustainable business model. And there's nothing better than the subscription model.
Well, like I said, I don't think Clio does anything by accident. So I suspect if that was in Jack's keynote, there's something that they're going to do. And it makes sense to potentially help with the value-based pricing. So it's a good place to be. And again, it fits my passion. I'm about efficiency myself. I'm about creating value. And that's what we've done with Lawline. And I don't know, it's something that I want to continue to help and focus on. And I know we're running low on time. So as much, so let's say two more and then we'll see where we end up. Is I'm going to ask you, if you do at the end, if you have any questions for me. It's always been like a fun thing where you may or may not, but it just ends up being an interesting conversation. And the last two questions for you, just following up on what I said before, is there any content or courses you would recommend that whether we or anybody else should be teaching right now or putting out there that you haven't seen in the marketplace?
So I am teaching a class at ABA Tech Show in 2025.
Okay.
I don't know if I could actually announce this yet. But so I'm not going to say anything.
Okay.
Because it's not like I've been notified and I've accepted, but it's not official and they haven't announced it.
Fair enough.
But I think you mentioned tech stack, right? And we'll keep it broad. Yeah, I have 43 tools in my tech stack, and it actually went down to 42, and then it went back up to 43 when I discovered Google Notebook LM. So yeah. I thought I was shortening my list, and then it went back to 43. I think that one of the biggest surprises to me, because I didn't know how that Gen AI one I was going to do on Lawline, how that was going to go, because there's this influx of AI CLEs out there, and I try to attend all of them if I can virtually. And I still think more than half of them are garbage. And so I tried to really give like a really good one that has a lot of good takeaways. I didn't know how that was going to go because like I'm literally covering like 80 plus tools, right? So I wonder it's like my most popular CLE I've ever given ever. So it might just be because it's AI. but it's also like, okay, yeah, there's like a lot of tools out there, but that's just AI. There's a lot of non-legal specific tools. There's a lot of legal adjacent tools, right? Think like your Microsoft Suite, Google Workspace, Adobe, like those, DocuSign, right? And then there's like your legal specific tools. And then there's even things like website builders, right? You've got all of those, and like maybe you want to just use a template instead of paying $10,000 for somebody to build you a website. And there's things like Substack and newsletter-based websites that already have built-in SEO. So like, do you actually need to? So there's all these different things, and so I feel like you could do like an overview course, like I did with the Gen AI one, of like, okay, here's an overview of all the tech. And kind of my CLEs are already kind of like that, if anybody's actually watched my CLEs. And then do like a dedicated, and they won't all have to be an hour, because there's not an hour. You can't talk for an hour about scheduling tech, right? But you can maybe talk for 30 to 45 minutes about scheduling tech. Then you do like a course on each one of those types of categories. And I think that like, because really at the end of the day, like what a lawyer needs to start their own business is they kind of got to learn all these things.
Yeah.
Now, I learned them all over the course of years of just consuming this information. And then when I was finally ready to go solo, I was ready because I had like consumed all this information over years. And I could not even tell you where I went to learn all of this stuff. It's just been it just gets absorbed. It's like my organic large language model was just trained on all this data, and I can't point to the specific source.
Well, I think it's really what teaching has also done for you. It helped you organize it. You're forced to organize it in a way that you can communicate it effectively. And if not, you might not even like be able to communicate effectively how many tools you've learned. And I think that's the key, right? You can watch a video, you can do it, but you actually got to go in there. Like I learned by going into Descript and actually messing around with it, but I'm probably only using 1% of the functionality in there. And so it's figuring that out.
So I don't know when this is going to go live, but especially for you, David, I just watched another hour and a half, granted at 2 times speed, so it only took me 45 minutes, to a Descript 101 on their YouTube channel. Usually once a month, when they have or when they have a big product update like they've recently had, they'll do a Descript 101. And even though I've been using Descript for like 2 years now, I always learn something new that's super useful to me by watching those 101s. And they even have some super new features I didn't know existed, made the whole 45 minutes worth watching it. So if depending on when this gets published, just subscribe to Descript's YouTube channel because they will do these Descript 101s like with some regularity.
Awesome. That's helpful. And that leads me to my last question for you. And then if you have a question for me, my last question is, how do you learn? Because obviously it sounds like there's a lot of informal learning. Do you literally set time aside, or just like it happens when it happens? I'm just curious how you learn today.
I subscribe to a lot of newsletters, although I've lately been on this kick of unsubscribing to a lot of them again. I go through this ebb and flow of subscribe, unsubscribe to newsletters, and there's places like Northwestern University and University of Chicago, and like because I do like to go in person and do some learning sometimes, and so like examples like that, like the Polsky Center through University of Chicago, and I discover events. Whether they're learning events or networking events, like through those things, and I just subscribe and I do them. So some of my alumni networks, I get emails through them that there's like some webinar or Zoominar or something.
You mentioned the hour Descript video. Like how did you know you wanted to watch that video? Did you do it first thing in the morning? Do you do it at 4 a.m.? Do you do it in the middle of the afternoon? Like when do you find the time to watch an hour video?
Yeah. I really help out around the house. I don't just leave that to my wife because she also works a full-time gig and hers is much more traditional. And so we share in all the household responsibilities. So if I'm making dinner for the night, I will like pop in some earbuds and it takes me like 30 to 45 minutes to make dinner for the family, right? So like that's an opportunity. I do all the driving for my kid for daycare. So drop off and pick up. During that drive time, that's when I'm able to tune into a podcast or like, I'll like stream a YouTube video, but it's like my phone is down. I'm not actually watching it, right? Now, Descript, you can't do that. You got to actually watch because they're showing you how to do the things. And then when I'm eating lunch, like I work for myself, I work at home most days. If I'm, on my lunch when I'm eating, that's when I'll maybe watch the Descript thing. I think I watched that during lunch, even yesterday. And then I go to a lot of in-person networking events. And so driving to and from in-person networking events, like through the Chamber of Commerce and things like that, that's when I've always got a podcast or something, some educational video going. I've got tons of hours in my phone, like monthly, in podcasts and YouTube. It's all educational. None of it's junk food. None of it's TikTok. None of it's random, crazy stuff you can't believe. It's all educational update stuff. Okay, I do a little bit of popcorn here and there. I do some like video game podcasts because I don't have time to play video games anymore. So I'll listen to a video game podcast, and that might be like the way that I scratch that itch. Because as a father of a young child and a solopreneur, like I don't have time to game anymore, although I do miss it. So other than like the occasional video game podcast, it's all educational stuff.
Love it. Thank you. I really appreciate your time. Is there any questions that you have for me that came to mind from the conversation that we had? That you're an expert interviewer as well. If not, no worries. We can end it here. We just wanted to see anything I could help you with.
So I remember when you were launching your AI features in Lawline that Callie reached out about having me like play around with it and provide some feedback. So I'm curious to know how that's going. Like, are folks actually leveraging the ability to query against your content library? Because that's like in Notebook LM, what I'm able to do is I could connect any YouTube video. And what I've now done is I've connected all of my podcasts in a series of notebooks so I could query against my podcast history. But you've just built that in to Lawline. And so are folks leveraging that? Like, do they even know about that powerful of a tool?
The answer is it's nowhere near the leverage that we want it to be, nor are we communicating effectively enough. I could tell you every day, I'd say maybe we're at 5% leverage or something like that, but there's people using it and there's value. And you can see that what's going on there. But the struggle for me is it's figuring out the right way to go about that. And so we actually, even in a way, we built it a year ago, right? And so we built it on the token limit when it was different than it is today, and which is good because we had to index all of our courses. I could tell you even when I was going through your courses, I was asking it questions about what, any question I wanted to, and it would source it to the point in the video where you said it. So I could tell you this. I've always been obsessed in the 17 years that I've been focused on this is just-in-time learning. I've always been obsessed with getting the answer that you need when you need it. And in CLE is the exact opposite because you cannot fast forward. It has to be 60 minutes. It has to be a certain amount of, we can't even play it at 1.5 speed. Even though some people talk like this, regulators won't let us do that because it has to be 60 minutes. And so it's nowhere near the value that I want it to be seen. And I'm still trying to figure that out. And so because it in a way, it's ChatGPT. We've just built in our own, ChatGPT. We have 2,000 courses in the data set. So I guess I'll throw it back to you. Is there anything that you can, and when I've asked other people, right, they're paying $300 to $500 a month for Lexis, their AI tool. And it's similar, but the difference is it cites to the actual cases. So they have that area. And as of now, it's just being included as we're testing it into the subscription. So the answer is no, it's not being utilized to where I want it to be. I think there's so much more opportunity. It is just-in-time learning. It is answers at your fingertips. And so that's something I'm still trying to figure out how to leverage that more. And there's so much, like you said, AI in content, there's just so many AI tools out there. People are overwhelmed by it and maybe don't even have the time they're here to complete CLEs and they don't think of their behavioral change is not there. So
right.
That's the real answer to the question.
Yeah. I wonder if there are people who will watch the same course more than once. Like, that's a course, and those are the people that might be best leveraged for the tool, right? Because like if somebody watched my podcasting for lawyers class and they were like, oh, what was that thing Mathew said? Like, I can't remember or whatever, right? And they go back and they reopen it. I'm sure your analytics could show they watched this course multiple times. Like that's like they need an email or like a quick demo video recorded in Descript. That's like, hey, I saw you watch this video more than once. Here's how you could use this AI tool to just ask questions.
And one of the things that we're seeing, and I think we're seeing this in the space too, is chat prompting is not the easiest thing for people to do. Like it's not, there's no user interface. It's like, here's a tool, figure it out, ask questions. And so there's better opportunities to give them that just-in-time learning without them having to come up with the question on the spot.
Yeah.
And so thank you for that question. I appreciate it. Keeps me focused. Thank you for your time. I know you're very busy as a subscription lawyer. You probably have appointments coming up all the time. And I want to continue this conversation, how I can support you, Kerbis, how I can support you in what you do, because you are making a difference. And I know you hear it a lot, but I just want to make sure you hear it one more time. So
I appreciate that, David. Thank you. No, it's always good to hear that because you just never know.
Yeah, awesome.